Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to our Falcons vs. Panthers Week 8 postgame show here on the Falcoholic Live. I am Kevin Knight, here to bring you the instant reactions and all, the pain and suffering, all the stuff you guys are used to on this show if you've watched the program anytime from, the first 3 weeks of this season to all of the last 3 years. So obviously the Falcons did not break their losing streak. They are still... since 2017, it would be the last time they had a winning record. They were perilously close to getting that today, but after this loss, they are now able to get a winning record again. Earliest would be week 10, and to do that, they, I believe, would have to beat the Saints and the Patriots, which obviously looks like a bit of a tall order now, but let's talk about this game. Let's break down everything, including the Calvin Ridley news, because obviously that's a big deal. We're not going to speculate about that or anything like that, but I think it's newsworthy, so we will talk about it. But just to preface that, I just, the most important thing here is obviously Ridley and his health. So if he feels that he needs to take time off for the game and that's the best thing for him, that's the best thing for him. And we can't really force that. Obviously, it's unfortunate for the Falcons, unfortunate for the fans, everyone that really wants to see him play. But there are more important things in football, and sometimes you have to make that call for yourself. So, we can definitely talk about more of the football side of it. But I think we should just try to give Ridley some room here, because on a personal level, it's not something that you can really do anything about. I think that it's just going to take time for him, and I hope that at the end everything is good and we're back to where we need to be in terms of him being able to play football at a high level and hopefully be in a better place personally. So before we get to too much more, guys, just want to remind you to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the show. Make sure to mash that bell button. I guess that's important too. If you haven't activated the notifications for the show, that will give you little pop-ups on your YouTube feed whenever we do new stuff. I guess that's something that people have to do now if you want to get those. So if you're interested in that, definitely hit that up. Check out the Falcoholic Discord, which has been a lot of fun even during the depressing parts of today's game. And if you're interested in supporting the show, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. Link to that's in the show description. And we just appreciate everyone for supporting us there and helping keep the show going, keeping the lights on, keeping the channel ad-free, which is something that we would like to do for all time if possible. And your contributions there definitely make that a lot easier on us. So thanks, guys. Oh, yeah, also, if you want to send in something for us to read, just type in !tip. The link to that and the instructions are there also in the show description. Thank you guys so much for all your support and helping us get through this season, which is probably going to be a difficult one. But I don't think it will be as difficult as last year, even with a, annoying game like this, I would say. Pretty annoying to sit through and deal with. This is a game that the Falcons were technically in contention to win at the end. Ray, I'm not putting any ads on the channel. You relax. I'm not doing that. But you guys are generous enough. We don't need to do ads. Thank you all for your contributions. But yeah, I mean, I think before we get into the nitty gritty here, I do want to say that I think a lot of us, and I know a lot of folks in the chat are saying, Paul and Virgo, you guys are saying, we all kind of thought they'd be 500. And when you're a 500 team, you're going to lose some games that you should win, and you're going to win some games that you should lose. And I think we've seen a little bit of both of that now. The Washington game, a game the Falcons definitely should have won. This game, it's hard to say if the Falcons really should have won this game because, I mean, the two turnovers in scoring position, you kick field goals on those and you're technically tied in this one. So, obviously those were big plays. Young Waku missed a field goal that almost never happens, so you could consider that another turnover. It was just a really off game for the Falcons in general. And, not the game plan wasn't executed particularly well. I thought the run game was better in this one, but I think the loss of Calvin Ridley honestly caught them off guard because Ridley practiced all week. There was no sort of preparation for him being out, and I think that did sort of hurt the game planning. So I hope that we see a little bit more effective utilization of someone like Russell Gage, in future weeks. But Russell Gage didn't get a target. Tajay Sharp was the wide receiver one in this game. Kyle Pitts was seeing 2 to 3 defenders on every play. And, that's something he's probably going to have to learn how to beat. But the Falcons have to be able to sort of take advantage when teams are going to be dedicating so much to Pitts. And the running game did look better as a result of that, but ultimately the turnovers cost them. And you can't have 2 turnovers in scoring position when your defense is as bad as the Falcons is. And to give credit to the defense, they only allowed 19 points, sure, but they were just absolutely abysmal against the run. And this defense is not built to sort of do what they were asked to do in this game, which is keep up with the athletes and stop the run. They're really not going to be able to stop the run well. Their linebacking core is always going to be a smaller, more coverage-based group. I think that is the way to go in terms of building a team. But if you're going to go that route, what you have to have is big defensive tackles you can put in to sort of nullify the run game if a team is really going to go heavy run against you, and the Falcons don't have that. Tyler Davison is okay, but the rest of the Falcons defensive tackles outside of Grady Jarrett, they're small, and they're not really primary run defenders. And, the Falcons did activate Mike Pennell for this game, but he's not the answer to their run game problems. They need a big nose tackle if they're going to run with smaller linebackers, and a lot of 3-4 teams do this. They need that difference maker in the middle. And I know a lot of folks are going to say oh, Jordan Davis from UGA, and yes, sure, I'm fine with that. If they're picking in the teens, which is where they're probably going to end up picking, but that sort of player is what the defense really needs. And they also really need any sort of edge defending presence at all, which they don't have. I mean, Steven Means, Ogundeji, I think, is about as good as you could hope for a rookie in the 5th round, playing serviceable football. But Steven Means, Jacob Twitty-Mariner's not even on the field. John Kaminsky is inactive every week. They have nothing at edge, absolutely nothing. And that's going to make it worse too. So it's, I think honestly the lack of edge presence is worse than the nose tackle thing. I mean, it's hard to stop QB sneaks on 3rd and 1, even with good personnel, consistently. But the Falcons weren't just getting annihilated up the middle. I mean, they were getting abused pretty much on any run play. And the edge pressure is non-existent. The edge run defending is non-existent. I think maybe in years past, we've seen the Falcons sort of been able to at least have good run defending edge players if they couldn't rush the passer. And they don't have either right now. So that's a big problem. It's a big problem. All right, we got George Costanza with the $3. Okay, hold on, let me read this. He says, obvious Arthur Smith read a book this week called Clock Management for Dummies by Les Miles. What was the play calling at the end of the first half and the end of the game? Second and long runs always work. Hashtag facepalm. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you there, George. It was the first down, the end of game play calling, first half, end of game, noticeably subdued. They didn't even really try for points. I mean, I think they were trying to get that first down and then get, maybe more aggressive, but I think you have to go aggressive out of the break. But the problem was the Panthers match up really well against the Falcons, especially now that they're healthy. They have cornerbacks now with Stephon Gilmore in there, and Shaq Thompson, who is maybe the best player on their defense, or one of them, was back. So that defense is completely different with Shaq Thompson in there. And, it showed. They were able to cover Pitts very well with multiple players, and the Falcons couldn't take advantage. And that made it more difficult to dial up, aggressive plays in that scenario. Whereas, and the other thing that I didn't mention, the Panthers' pass rush is vicious. It's great. The Falcons' offensive line has been pretty good in pass protection, but they started out facing a murderer's row of pass rushes. They've had some easier ones lately. Then now they had to face maybe the best one all year that they've ever had to play, and the Panthers, and the team struggled. The pass protecting was okay, but the Falcons offense, I think, probably could have won this game, but the turnovers were crushing. Matt Ryan's first one, he got away with these tight window throws early, but it's so hard to be able to fit those throws in there and make it work constantly, and it's very risky, and it bit the Falcons twice in this one. the Panthers defense is too good to try that stuff against. And it's gonna hurt you. And ultimately, I think the combination of those turnovers, the missed field goal, and the defense just getting abused on the ground, just getting lit up, was why they lost this game. I think if Koo at least hits that field goal, this is a much more interesting game at the end. The Falcons, are probably playing for points on the drive where they kick the field goal instead of desperately trying to get that onside kick. So that's a big problem. Trying to rely on an onside kick to stay in a game, and then a miracle after that, obviously. But it was just a sloppy game all around. Not really too much else to say there. Tom K next up with the $3. Thank you, Tom, for your tip. He says, considering the team struggles against the Panthers' run game, do you think interior D-line becomes more of a target in next year's draft? I think the D-line is already the biggest target in the draft, so I don't know that this game makes it bigger. I think they're probably wanting to get the best defensive player they can in the first round, assuming the value is at least somewhat good. And then I think that they're sort of hoping that's either an edge or maybe a Jordan Davis, a bigger defensive tackle or an edge guy. And based on, the players that are in this draft, I think this is a good class to be picking edge or defensive tackle in the teens, because I think there's a lot of those good players in that range. Hold on one second, guys. Running out of breath here. Yeah, I mean, I think I know Ray is pointing out that Matt Ryan did have his hand pretty badly stepped on. It's obviously really difficult to say how big of an issue that was for him. It's pretty hard to know in general with that sort of stuff. But there's no doubt that if it was painful, that it was somewhat of a distraction. So that's clearly something that's gonna alter Matt Ryan's process, even if it's just a little bit against a really good defense. That could be enough. But I just, I think obviously the offense was the one that was the more disappointing unit in this one. But man, it's hard to see the defense go out there and just get blasted on basically every down with the run. I think there's just a lot of stuff to touch on in this game. Let's stay on track with the offense, because I keep bouncing back and forth between the most disappointing units. They were both pretty disappointing. Relative to expectations, the offense was definitely more. So to me, the big problem with this game, it's that the offense was pretty much lifeless for most of the game, and they had some good drives, but if you're gonna have just a few good drives instead of a lot of good drives, you can't afford mistakes. And the 2 turnovers completely changed the game. If they even convert one of those into a touchdown, they have a lead at the end of this game instead of being down. So it's just it's unfortunate. And I referenced the Calvin Ridley news to say that I just think that this team was not prepared for Ridley to sit out this game, at all. I don't think they practiced for it. I think they were expecting Ridley to be in there. I expect that he was a big part of the game plan, and he should be. We talked about it all week that, the next step for Arthur Smith was to really find a way to get Ridley sort of more involved. And Ridley obviously wasn't able to play in this game. So, I think we shouldn't discount that this Ridley news was probably as big of a shock to the team as it was to us as fans, and that makes a big difference. If you game plan your whole game, Ridley has burned the Panthers in the past. So I think a game plan that was going to heavily feature Ridley, expecting that the Panthers were probably going to, put a lot of guys on Pitts. I think that was probably the plan, to shower Ridley with targets if Pitts was getting double triple covered, which he was, and then Ridley's out and they have absolutely nobody else that can threaten deep. There's just And I think, if you want to criticize the team for passing on signing John Brown, passing on signing, Marvin Hall, who they had visiting, that's warranted. I think that it was really silly of them to be like this like receiver group that's like one injury away from being really bad, is fine. And it's not. It's not even remotely fine. And, I don't know what's going on with Russell Gage. He couldn't even get a target, but I mean, I didn't really see him open either. So I assume it's mostly that, coming back from injury, it's possible that he's a little, slow to come back. And I think Shadow Falcon says it correct. Like, I think Gage is a wide receiver 3. Like, I think he's a guy you want to be your third receiver, to be your primary slot guy. And to make him be your wide receiver 1 is not a recipe for success. He's not a guy that's built to take on like a team's top corner and really do much with it. On the good side, I think that the run game did look better. Let me get to the stats here real quick. Hold on, folks. Yeah, I'm going to look up the run game because it felt like they were a more efficient run game overall than they have been in recent weeks. I think they were getting some consistent push. Hold on. All right. Yes. So stats aren't up yet here. Wow. Wow. I have to use Google stats. It's embarrassing. Pro Football Reference. Where are the stats, man? Yeah, I mean, overall, I think the run game was fine. So Mike Davis was at 4.9 yards per carry. Obviously, that's pretty good. Cordarrelle Patterson was at just 3.9, which is probably like his lowest total of the season. And Matt Ryan, was at 1.5, but on 2 carries, that's not necessarily anything to be concerned about. So, yeah, I mean, I think the run game was pretty good. Yeah, and K Green, I think you're right. Like, it did what it needed to do. Like, they were able to get enough there to keep the offense sort of moving. But the problem was that their leading receiver was Tajay Sharp, who had 5 catches, 58 yards. And that's just simply not going to do it. Like, that's not going to work. And like, I think it's notable that the Falcons offense were facing a like healthy Panthers defense outside of, JC Horn being out. Obviously that's big for them. CJ Henderson was out as well. Not that he's been playing great. But, them getting Stephon Gilmore for the first time, who looked great in his return, obviously, outside of that one, pass interference call on Pitts. And then, Shaq Thompson was obviously huge for them. And the Falcons, couldn't really get anything going otherwise. Hayden Hurst got blanketed. Zacchaeus had 1 catch. And I don't even know if other receivers really had targets. I mean, Russell Gage didn't get a target. Zacchaeus got 1 target. It was Patterson and Sharp. Basically, that was it. So that's not going to cut it against. It's not going to cut it against good defenses. Like you're going to have more than that, and I think the Falcons know that, and that's part of the reason why they're probably going to be about a 500 team, because they just don't have the personnel on. They definitely don't have the personnel on offense without Calvin Ridley. But with Ridley, I think you could squint and say this is a decent receiving group. But without Calvin Ridley, it's not going to work. So, I mean, I would definitely expect them to add a receiver very soon, if not this week. I mean, they're going to, and the practice squad, I don't mean the practice squad. I don't think the practice squad is going to be enough. Like, they need to get a veteran in here, especially if, the Ridley thing might be a multi-week situation, which is kind of what it's sounding like, unfortunately. So that's bad. And then the defense, I mean, it's not good, but like, I don't know what you expected. I mean, this is about what I was hoping for the defense to keep. I think if a defense keeps the opposing team under 20, if this defense does that, like, I think that's a W for the defense. It's a very low bar to clear, but that's kind of where they are. But I mean, the Panthers, like, honestly, Hubbard had 24 carries, only averaged 3.5 a carry. So not that he had like an efficient day on the ground. They just couldn't get the stops when they needed to. Really, the problem was they let Sam Darnold run for 66 yards at 8 yards per carry. And that crushed them on a bunch of long third downs. But I mean, as a whole, outside of Sam Darnold, nobody on the Panthers except for Royce Freeman had above 4 yards a carry, and Royce Freeman only had 4.2 yards per carry on his 6 carries for 25 yards. So, that wasn't too bad. And like in the pass again, they only allowed 129 yards through the air. So like, honestly, like we shit on the defense because it was hard to watch them just give up these long drives, but they only gave up 1 touchdown and they did enough. So I think we should probably be a little bit easier on them because I think this is about the ceiling of this defense. Like this is if they're going to hold a team below 20, this team has to score more than 20. Like they have to do it. You just have to find a way to score more than 20 points. Even against a good defense like the Panthers, they had allowed a lot more than 20 per week going into this game. Now, like we said, getting those guys back healthy, that's big. The Falcons obviously had those 2 crushing turnovers, which really killed them. And that's about all it is. That's about all it is right now, is that this defense is not good enough to shut down an opponent. So if the offense is going to be stuck in the mud, it's not going to work. Period. They're not going to be able to win games like that. And without Calvin Ridley in the fold for an undetermined amount of time, they're going to have to find other ways to get this going against better defenses because things aren't getting any easier next week. I mean, the Saints are a great defense. The Patriots after that, good defense. I mean, maybe not great, but good at least. So the like soft defensive part of their schedule, that's done now. We have to move on now to a much rougher part of the schedule in terms of the defenses the Falcons are expected to be able to beat. So I just let's look at it here. Yeah. So next week it's at the Saints. You got to go to New Orleans, where their defense is currently second in points allowed. They're allowing 16.8 points per game. So I wouldn't expect a great day from the offense there, if we're being totally honest with ourselves. And then after that, it's not the Patriots, it's the Cowboys defense, which is currently not great in terms of points allowed, but they've certainly been opportunistic. Cowboys, I think, are 20th in scoring. And then the week after that, it is finally the Patriots, who are 6th, allowing just 20 points per game. So you're going to have to figure out ways to move the ball better against defenses that aren't trash, because you're going to be playing a bunch of them coming up here. And I think you kind of have to get another receiver in here. They worked out Marvin Hall this week. I sort of hope that happens because I think Hall's pretty good. To be honest, I think he's pretty good. I think he can be, at least a wide receiver 3 sort of guy, which even that would be an upgrade. And it seems like, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot to Cordarrelle Patterson and the running backs, and they're going to have to, find ways to get Pitts the ball. They're going to have to start punishing teams for dedicating, 2 or 3 guys to him, and they can't do it with who they have right now. And until they get that fixed, that's sort of where we're at with this team. Yeah, I mean, the Patriots' run game is definitely going to be a problem, Nico. That is for sure. That is for sure. It's going to be very difficult to stop that because the Patriots are just going to run it down their throat. Any team that can run, really, including Dallas, is going to give this Falcons defense a really, really hard time, which means they're going to have to score. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it against teams not named Dallas. So, we'll see. We'll see. All right. I missed another one from George. Hold on one second. George says, I was really looking forward to an Eric rant today. Is he going to be coming on? Not that I know of today. I think a lot of people are busy with World Series stuff. So I think it's going to be a little bit quiet in the Atlanta sports scene today. The Falcons really aren't, the center of attention today, which is probably good, considering how poorly they played. But, I think they're going to... I think understandably everyone in Atlanta is more focused on the Braves tonight, and that's fair. So, we'll have a shorter show. There's not really much else to say about this game. We'll break it down, try to answer some of you guys' questions. Dion asking about why the Falcons play so poorly at home. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's any really good reason for it, but they definitely seem to struggle at home. They're now 0-3 at home this year. They're 3-1 either on the road or in neutral site like London. So they're definitely bad at home. And I don't really have anything to say about that. Yeah, I know George says, we need our daily dose of reality because Adnan's hype train was getting out of control. Every time Adnan gets that hype train going, it's going to crush this team. So nothing to do there. But, on defense, I think that we're at least seeing that there's like some pieces to build around. I think Eric Harris is a guy certainly worth keeping around. They're going to have a decision to make with Deion Jones versus Foye at the end of this season. And I don't know. I think that's kind of a toss up right now. They're only keeping one. They're either going to give Foye probably like a mid-level veteran contract, or they're going to trade Deion. And if they do that, they're going to trade Deion, or they're going to let Foye walk in free agency and keep Deion at his current price tag or extend him or something like that. We'll see how that goes. I think if the offer is good enough for Deion, you probably move Deion there. But Tom, I think you're asking about if they lose Foye because Deion's under contract. So if they cut Deion then they don't get a comp pick. But if they let Foye walk and he signs, elsewhere, they could get a comp pick. It depends, on how many players the Falcons sign. But I think Deion will certainly be a subject of sort of trade speculation. But I think it's unlikely the Falcons really move a lot of players at this point. Deion didn't have a good game, so I think you're not really hoping his trade value is maximized right now. But I think that if anyone does get moved, Deion is most likely to be moved. But it's going to be after the season if he does get traded. I think because of the financial implications of his contract. So they're gonna have to find I think if they trade Deion, I think you're hoping for a second round pick or a third round pick. So if Deion has a really strong season, I think that's realistic. If he struggles like he did this week, it's probably a little less likely. So we'll see how that goes. Hold on 1 second, guys. Yeah, Nico. I liked Eric Harris's tackles. I think honestly, people were blasting Harris last week where he whiffed that tackle on Tua. He hurt himself on that play. He was in position to make the tackle. He had him grabbed. The wrist just gave out on him. The wrist just gave out on him. So I don't blame Harris for that. I think he was in position. I think he had him wrapped up, and the wrist just gave out on him. So he came back this week, and it looks good. I think, Harris is definitely a guy that I'd like to keep around as a contributor. I don't know that the Falcons need to be giving him starting snaps all the time, but as a contributor, I like him. Harmon's been really disappointing, sadly, but I think Avery Williams on defense has actually been kind of interesting, which I wasn't surprised about, or I wasn't expecting, I guess I should say, so I am surprised by it. I think Avery Williams actually being able to start on defense and not be a liability is kind of good. And we'll see what happens with Isaiah Oliver with his season-ending injury. It might be a situation where the Falcons are sort of able to get him back relatively cheap, which I think would be a good thing since he was playing really well at nickel. The secondary has been noticeably worse since he got hurt. But they still need more talent at corner. I think Fabian Moreau is definitely a guy I'd be happy to have as a contributor, but I don't think he's an impact cornerback 2. So I think if you're in position to draft somebody you think could be an impact cornerback 2 to complement AJ Terrell long term, I think you sort of that's a draft pick that they could consider. But I honestly don't think there's any position on defense that they would not consider, because if going down this Debo trade rabbit hole, you're looking for a linebacker then, and maybe you're confident in Michael Walker there. But I think you're also probably drafting another linebacker to complement that. If you really like Michael Walker, maybe it's a day 3 thing. If you're more skeptical, then you're probably looking to add a linebacker, maybe on day 2 if you have extra second round picks, from a Deion Jones trade, for example, or a Julio Jones trade. or Calvin Ridley trade, or all these other trades that could potentially come about. I think there are quite a few assets the Falcons could move to pick up day 2 picks if they were trying to just sort of load up and sort of reset. But, we'll see how aggressive they're trying to get with that. Let's see. Yeah, I mean it's going to be tough for the Falcons to win. This is a rougher stretch of their schedule here. I think when I saw this stretch early in the year when the Panthers were 3-0, I was like, oh, this is going to be, a really rough kind of slump for the Falcons at this point of the year. So them losing this game doesn't give me a lot of hope for New Orleans. I think New Orleans' defense also matches up really well with the Falcons, and Falcons traditionally don't play the Saints well in New Orleans. But, there's always hope because New Orleans' offense has been mistake prone and also not great, but they're also really good at running the ball. So, it doesn't line up cleanly for this team. Obviously, Dallas, the Falcons aren't really going to stop that offense, so it's going to have to be a shootout. And then the Patriots seem to just own the Falcons. So, as sad as that is, I think there's a chance that they're 3-7 after this stretch, but then they have an opportunity to win some more games. Jacksonville, they're probably winning that one. They're probably going to lose to the Bucs, but I think there's a winnable stretch of games there in the middle of that schedule. Jacksonville, I think they definitely can beat the Panthers, but will they? I don't know. San Francisco 49ers look very mortal, but they do run the ball well, so we'll see. The Lions, obviously, that is a game they should be expecting to win, and I do think they will split. I think they'll split with the Panthers and Saints. So in that case, we're probably still looking at something around 500 for this team. So does this game really move the needle for me? No. I don't think this really moves the needle for anything. I think this is a team that's pretty mediocre, and a mediocre team is going to look good some weeks, look bad others. The talent is going to look worse against good opponents, and it's going to look, better against poor opponents, because I think ultimately this team is decently coached, well coached even at times. So I think that they will beat up on lesser teams, or at least beat lesser teams. I think the only time that really hasn't happened thus far is against Washington, where they really should have beat Washington. I think the Panthers are a team that's probably about the same as the Falcons. They have serious problems on offense, but their defense is really good. So, they'll win games where they can keep the score low, which they did today, but they're going to struggle with better teams that can score on them. Or their defense can't stop, or against good defenses that will keep their offense from scoring anything. So, the Falcons aren't either of those things. Michael Zurich says, all for Ridley taking care of himself. Thank you for the donation, by the way, Michael. Just wish the team had preparation to know he'd be out at this point. Don't think they would have, gone into the season with the receiving core this week. Basically, if they knew Gage and Sharp were going to have to be starters, bad timing. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they could possibly predict this. I don't think Ridley could have predicted this. I don't think anyone could have. It's just unfortunate, but I think either way they were willingly going into this season with poor depth at many, many positions on the roster. We talked about it at length in the preseason, that they were sort of building this roster. They were saying that they wanted to be competitive, but they were building the roster like they were not expecting to be serious contenders. And the lack of depth is a big indicator of that. I think if you are a team that wants to compete and you think you're going to be beefing up your depth and spending a lot of money on that if you can, because you don't want one injury to derail your season. If your team is good, you can weather a guy being out and have a decent backup in there and sort of, get through it without a problem. But if you're really sort of expecting to be a 500 team that's maybe going to be frisky for a wild card, you're not going to load up your roster with this great depth, this expensive depth, when you're probably not really relevant anyway. And it's kind of if you do have these catastrophic injuries, maybe you just sort of chalk it up and say well, now we're just going to get a great draft pick. So, we'll see how the whole strategy shakes out. But the way they built this team, and I've said it before, it really is looking more like 23 is their target for when they want to be relevant, like when they really want to start hitting their stride. And like I think they could certainly be competitive in 2022 if they nail their draft. But, the cap is going to be tight once again next year, and they're not going to get the comp picks from this year. Notably, the Falcons signed pretty much every free agent they had to a 1-year deal. So if any of these guys go off and get big contracts elsewhere, they could potentially be, netting some comp picks. Probably not any like super high ones, but maybe like a smattering of like 4th, 5th, 6th round comp picks to really get them, extra draft assets in 2023. And, I think they're hoping to go into 2023 with a healthier cap situation, with 2 draft classes designed around building the team to what Arthur Smith wants. Well, 3, if you count 2023. And sort of having the flexibility then to make a few key additions with their cap space, and with, potentially a loaded draft class where you've got a lot of day 3 ammunition that you can either use to fill out the depth or to sort of, package and get extra day 2 picks potentially. And, David Thatcher raises a good question, which is, if it's a rebuild, why is Ryan still here? And it's because Arthur Smith clearly really likes Matt Ryan, and he wants to work with Matt Ryan. Maybe he doesn't want to risk the rookie quarterback not working. I think you could definitely argue that Kyle Pitts was much more likely to hit than a rookie quarterback, just because Kyle Pitts is absurd. And like, he had a bad game today, but like, relax. He's still a rookie tight end in his like 7th game. So, let's not necessarily give Pitts any shit for not going off against triple coverage. But I think ultimately the answer is that they don't think it's a true rebuild, because it's like a 2 or 3 year turnaround, and they think Matt Ryan will still be playing at a high level when they're hitting their stride. And I don't think Matt Ryan's play thus far has made me question that strategy too much. I mean, I think Ryan's been good enough to where, if this team is right, I think Ryan's certainly good enough to still, get them into the playoffs and all that sort of stuff. But I think that they'll probably consider quarterbacks. I don't know that it'll be a 1st round target this year. Maybe they use those 2023 extra picks to package something together to move up for a quarterback they like. I think this year's quarterback class is pretty lackluster. I do like Malik Willis a lot, but I don't think they're necessarily going to be in range for him where they're picking in the teens. It's possible if someone like him falls to the team that they're willing to sort of, roll the dice on it, but I don't think they're going to be, packaging anything for a trade or going that direction. And I think the way they built the team thus far makes me think that they're just going to try to build his team around Ryan, and hope that they can get a quarterback later. Maybe in 24, 23, I think is, a likely time for them to start looking for that guy, because they're probably hoping he'll sit for a year. But, it's hard to say. But it's clear to me that, the offense, I think the offensive line is honestly okay. I don't think they need to spend premium picks to address the offensive line at this point. The Panthers are one of the NFL's best pass rushes. I think they were like 3rd or 4th in the league in pass rush pressure rate. So it's, them struggling against this great offensive line, great pass rush of the Panthers, the Falcons offensive line struggling. Not really something that's a huge concern for me. I obviously you'd like them to be better, but I don't think it's like you're going to, unless you're pouring like a lot of premium resources into the offensive line, you're not going to get an offensive line that's going to be like great against those great pass rushes. And I think, it's kind of wait and see with Matt Hennessy and Jalen Mayfield. I think they've been good enough certainly to let them continue growing. Right tackle maybe is one spot where you could say like, if there's a great right tackle sitting there at like 15 or whatever the Falcons are picking, maybe that's more worthwhile. Maybe that's something you could consider because of positional value. But I do think, defense is the priority, and wide receiver is the other one. I think they have to add another wide receiver, especially if Ridley is playing elsewhere. But even if Ridley stays, I think you need to add someone for the long term. Everyone knows I love Drake London, but there's a lot of guys in this class. Going to be ton of day 2 wide receivers. I don't think you force wide receiver in round 1 if the guy you like isn't there. I don't think you really force it at all. I think you probably try to lean defense with that pick, but I mean, it's like if the best receiver in the draft is there at 15, maybe you consider taking him. But I just, that's clear that the weapons, like the way this team is built, like they're going to beat teams that are bad on defense. Like they're going to be able to take advantage of bad defenses, which is like nice. Like that's good to be able to do, but they don't have the personnel to really like win a lot of one-on-one matchups with a good defense, especially when that defense is going to like dedicate 2 guys or more to Kyle Pitts on every play. And they just don't have anyone else that's really winning those one-on-ones. I mean, Tajay Sharp won like 5 one-on-ones, so like, he's contributing, but that's like his ceiling. Like I think Tajay Sharp getting 5 for 60 yards is sort of what you're expecting to get from Tajay Sharp, and that's like, oh, that's a good game from Tajay Sharp, good on him for contributing, but that's his role. Like I don't think he's a guy you want to throw that many targets, like more targets than that too. So I'd like to see what happens there. I'll do one more question here from Robert Kelly. He says, so say we get Jordan Davis from Georgia, would you trade Grady after Davis's rookie season is over? No, I think the Falcons have nothing on the defensive line, so I'm keeping Grady Jarrett at all costs just because I think he's like your best defensive player and one of your leaders. I think you just pay him, you keep him. He's something to build around. And I think, if you can get Grady and Jordan Davis hits and is like this really good Vita Vea like nose tackle, which is what everyone's expecting, I think that really gives your defense an identity, which is something they don't have at all right now. At some points it's been like maybe the linebackers could be the identity or AJ Terrell, but like they need like an identity. And I think they could be like, okay, the Falcons have this massive imposing defensive tackle group, with Marlon Davidson playing maybe a bigger role as he continues to grow, Grady Jarrett being great, and then Jordan Davis just being this monster. And then, hopefully, the Falcons are adding more edge guys too. And I think this is a really good draft to need edge because there's edges that you can get. I think picking at 15, I would say right now, edge is definitely the favorite for that pick because of what is the class. There's a lot of good edge players. I think there's like 5 or 6 ones that I would consider in the first round, and that probably means there'll be one of those guys there at 15. Now, I don't know if it's the one I'll like the best. I don't know that much about the class at this point, but, that's kind of where we are with that. Yeah, guys, don't really know too much else what to say. We'll have Adnan and probably Eric at least, as well as I believe The Athletic's new Falcons reporter on Wednesday, our usual Wednesday show at 8:10 p.m. Eastern. So you can check that out here on YouTube as well. Please do like and subscribe, hit the bell if you don't mind. Those metrics really help us out. Thanks to all 150 of you Falcons fans that aren't just immediately switching to tailgating for the Braves, and we're going to tune into the show. We appreciate that from you. Hopefully we just sacrifice the Falcons for a big Atlanta championship. I think we could all agree that the Falcons dropping this game probably worth it if that's the outcome. I think it's probably worth it. I think the Falcons can recover, from losing this game. So, it was a difficult one, but I appreciate everyone for hanging out, everyone for donating. Like I said earlier, check out our Patreon page. We really appreciate everyone for supporting the show there. That money goes to helping us, upgrade our equipment, pay for all of the show related expenses. We have to use programs and stuff like that to run the show. We appreciate, so that money is very helpful. We're probably going to be starting up some sort of fundraising thing on here to help get us to the Senior Bowl. If you guys want that hands-on Senior Bowl coverage. So I'll keep you guys posted about that. But hopefully we'll try to have fun with it, that sort of stuff, and see if we can get one of our people down, either myself or Eric, to the Senior Bowl to cover that, because I know you guys love the draft takes. But yeah, also guys, check out the Discord server. The link to that's in the show description. And I am Kevin Knight. I have Falcoholic Kevin. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said before, we will see you on Wednesday at 8:10 p.m. for our next show, where Adnan will not proclaim that the Falcons are going to the Super Bowl. I can tell you that right now. So thank you guys so much. Have a great night. Enjoy your Halloween.